Years and years ago, I was in a situation where I was trying to negotiate a big deal. And this big deal was going tits up. There were 4 properties, £1,000,000. I'd negotiated a really good price, and then the developer changed their mind. They decided that they weren't going to give us the discount anymore. I was quite cheesed off about that. It wasn't something that I was used to. You know, we'd agreed a price. It was a new development. In them days, we used to buy off plan and then sell on to other investors. And I had other investors lined up to buy them off of me. So there was a good profit in there for me. They come along and decided they didn't want to sell them to us, which they've got their right to. We hadn't exchanged contracts, but it teased me off. And their sales office said to me, well, you can, if you want to, have a meeting with the sales director. So I said, yes, I want a meeting with the sales director. So the sales director said, oh, okay, well, I'll come down and meet you. And this was in Kent, the development was in Kent, and he lived in Sussex. He had to go by train. Now, anyone known cutting across country, train-wise, is difficult. Probably had to go into London to come back out again to get to Kent. So it was a big journey for him. And I was thinking to myself, how am I going to deal with this? I want to get a result. I appreciate they're not going to sell them to me at the price they originally agreed, but there must be some middle ground. And they were saying, no, there wasn't. I'm going to go with a different mindset, because I'd read a book by a guy called Covey. It's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. One of the habits was seek first to understand before being understood. And I thought, do you know what? I like this idea. I'm going to test it out. So this guy, Chris, his name was, met me in the morning. He was expecting a difficult conversation. But the way I saw it was, there's no point being difficult. I want to achieve something. And the only way I'm going to be able to do that is to understand their specific issues. So Chris came in and he said, right, okay, so what would you like to know? And I'll tell you what, why don't you tell me what the situation is from your perspective? And I sat there, I had a notepad and a pen. And this is very important to understand this specific principle. The pen is there for me to mark down words that I can go back to get my point across if I hadn't already. And the idea for seek first to understand before being understood is to keep your mouth shut. Literally, you've got 2 of these and 1 of these, use them in that order. And there were things I wanted to say to him. I had to trust the process. And the only way I was going to do that was to be disciplined in my mind and not think about what I wanted to get across, but listen to what he had to say. And there were 1 or 2 things that I cropped up that I just made 1 word note of. Because the thing is, right, one of the biggest issues of this concept is you want to get your point across. And you're afraid you're not going to get your point across. So if you start listening to someone with the intent to reply, in other words, I'm just waiting for the break. You're saying something, I'm waiting for the break to step in and say, oh, yeah, but, and I'll get my point across. So I'm not then listening really to you because I'm trying to wait for that break so I can reply, as opposed to listening intently to understand. There's a difference. If I listen with the intent to reply as opposed to with the intent to understand, I'm not going to interrupt you. So I let Chris talk, and 1 or 2 things he mentioned, I then asked him another question to explore it a bit further. And once he'd gone through everything he had, and he spoke for about 15, 20 minutes, and I just made 1 or 2 notes. And there was another reason for making notes, is that I wanted to understand from his perspective and then reaffirm it back to him that I understood his situation. So I said to Chris afterwards, because he said, okay, what do you want to say now? So I said, well, it looks like effectively you're the bearer of bad news. You've not made this decision yourself. Your board have, and you're the messenger. So don't shoot the messenger. And he went, yeah, that's right. And you could see the relief on his face, as if to say, I understood his plight, which was he was having to tell people, sorry, we negotiated and we can't do that deal now. And I said, and all the time, the reason why your firm can't do it at that level is because they've jumped the gun a bit on prices and their cost base have gone up substantially and they can't physically sell them at that cost. He went, nah, that's right, that's right. Now he's going to listen to me. And now I've got that out of the way, because I've listened with the intent to understand, I've understood him, he will now listen to what I've got to say. So then I replied, I'm disappointed because I had this figure in mind and you've reneged on the deal because of the situation you explained. But surely there's some middle ground. I was prepared to do a deal in a halfway point. I didn't mind. And we agreed that he would take it to the board because I was being considerate of his position. He was then considering mine. And he went back to his board and we settled halfway between our original agreed price and the new price they wanted. So I got a result because I sought first to understand before I was understood. And I got the result. And once I did that day, I remember everything changed for me because I realized how powerful this was. So when I talk about life lesson number 79, about listening, really listen, this is the principle that it comes from. Seek first to understand before being understood. And if you think about the conversations or the interactions you have with other people, think about how you respond or react, maybe. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to worry that you're not going to get your point across. If you make them notes, just one word, because one word will take you back to the point you want to, you don't have to write a sentence. Just one word will take you back to the point that you want to make. So if a point comes up in the conversation, they're talking, and you want to make that point, just write one word down. Have you ever been in that situation when you're trying to think what you was going to say, you've lost the thread, and someone mentions one word and you remember the whole thing? It's the same principle. And have the faith that this will work. Because what will happen is the things that you're writing down, that the points you want to get across, will probably fade towards the end because you've listened, you've got your, that makes sense. I don't need to re-clarify that one. And you'll probably find that any points that you was going to get across weren't something you're going to need to worry about in the first place. I'm telling you now, this is very powerful if you do it correctly. It takes practice, but it's well worth the investment in your time and commitment to do this, because your relationships will change dramatically. Because everyone likes to be heard. Someone has to make the first move. Someone has to get off the roundabout first. Be the change you want to see. Don't expect other people to change. And you, honestly, this had such a profound effect on my communication. It was phenomenal. I wished I'd learnt it years ago. And tomorrow's life lesson, because this leads nicely onto that, is finding the positives in all situations. So until then.